It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
And Derrick Bell, because it's a Friday. Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders, as you can see on the screen. We also got Steelers DB, Derrick Bell joining the show. A rare Friday episode where it's all three of us as of late. How we doing, guys?
I'm great. You can't get me in a bad mood on days like today.
On a Friday or on a non-travel Friday, right? Because the Steelers are at home. So is that what you're saying?
No, it's just on a nonsense day. I love nonsense. Nonsense is wonderful. You're not going to get me upset on a nonsense day. Today was a nonsense day. It was fun. Also, yes, non-travel Fridays. Five stars would recommend.
Sorry, I thought too much into it, like the actual.
What's the like declutter lady who just says like, I love mess. Yeah, that's me. I love mess.
And DB, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'll echo Alan's sentiments. As I've gotten older and like the more that I've kind of done what I'm doing right now, a part of me just roots for as much chaos as possible just because I think it's hilarious and I'm a guy who likes to laugh and likes to have fun. So there's a lot of funny stuff that's happened this week. So that's been interesting. And also it's my son's birthday this weekend. So his birthday's on Sunday. We got Sunday night football, and then his birthday party is actually tonight. So I got a good weekend coming up. I'm off work tonight. So I'm excited about that stuff.
My guy. Well, happy early birthday to the little man. And I know you'll be in Pittsburgh next week.
Yes,
for
sir.
The game with your other child. So Laurel coming to town. We're excited for it.
Yes,
all right, let's dive into it. Alan, first off, I want you to maybe clear something up, give more information on this, because a new name on an injury report on a Friday, never good news. Davante Adams randomly added to the injury report today for the Steelers. Questionable tag, I would say on the wrong side of questionable there. When you get added to an injury report on a Friday, that's never good. What do we got on this?
Yeah, it wasn't quite like Troy Fautanu, but it was, a similar vibe for me where it's like, knee injury on a Friday. That's probably not playing this week. I would imagine. I mean, we'll see, but I don't get the vibe that that's good news for Mont. And they don't have like another. I was writing the write up, and like besides Keanu Benton, they don't really have another nose tackle body type around. So now I don't think this is going to be a big base defense game. The Jets just got their new shiny toy. I assume they're going to want to play a lot of 11 personnel, but yeah, not a whole lot of depth in terms of they haven't had a lot of depth in terms of nose tackles since they like cut Jonathan Marshall midway through training camp. I remember they were trying Logan Lee there. That didn't really work so well. They had Jacob Slade there for a little bit. He's still on the practice squad, but that is just not him at all. So yeah, I think they'll be in a little trouble if Keanu Benton gets hurt in the meantime. But other than that, I think Dean Lowry and Isaiah Loudermilk have played fine when they've been asked to play rotational sub-package roles, and that's, I think, going to be most of the job on this weekend.
I'm an unreasonably large fan of Monty Adams. Don't ask me why.
It's perfectly reasonable. I'm a huge fan of Monty Adams' personality. I like the way he plays.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't even get that good of a look inside the personality aspect of this. I really enjoy the way that he plays when he gets an opportunity.
Nothing not to like about Monty Adams. Good dude.
Another name that I want to ask you about is Roman Wilson, just because, not a Friday, but Thursday popping up on the injury report. Another questionable tag. Any read into that one?
I think he probably could play. I guess the question there is more, do they want him to? And are they going to play a guy who's not 100% 5 snaps? I don't know. I tried to run the helmet math kind of part of it, and you got 3 guys ruled out. One of the offensive linemen probably gets scratched, and so I don't know I'm not sure what else. It seems like it's pretty easy for him to play, but if he's not 100%, I don't know. Maybe call up Brandon Johnson instead or something.
Yeah,
or maybe they call up a defensive lineman now. I guess that was kind of before Adams too. Like if he's not going to play, they don't have Leal. They don't have an extra defensive lineman on the active roster. I don't know, like who is the defensive lineman on the practice? Is it just Slade? Is that the only one? I think it might be.
I don't know, actually. Could be.
Yeah, I think so. So pretty thin on the defensive line. That's curious. Yeah, Jacob Slade is the only one there. So if Mont doesn't play,
it's replacing the offensive line now. It's switched. Now it's going to be the defensive line that sends out. That was a really good position group.
The offensive line is still banged up.
It is. Yeah. Well, hopefully that takes no more hits, and hopefully there's not a spot on the team that you want to see hits be taken, but hopefully everybody just stays healthy for the rest of the year. Other thing that we want to talk about, going back to this past Tuesday, NFL Network alluded to the idea of Russell Wilson starting. It's been widely considered that was going to be the case, and then NFL Steelers insider George Pickens breaking the news to everybody in the locker room today when discussing the matter. So Russell Wilson, Sunday Night Football, going against Aaron Rodgers, combined age of 76 for the quarterbacks in this one. How are we feeling?
I'm laughing at the George thing, because I think a lot of people think that it's like, you know, oh my God, George let the cat out of the bag or whatever. Like, I'm about 97% sure that George does not have any idea that like the general population has been talking about Justin versus Russ, and that's been the number one topic across social media this week. I think George is just in his own world. Like, I don't think he cares. I don't think he has. There's obviously
he's like, right.
He's
probably like, wait, this wasn't public knowledge. Like,
yeah,
Tuesday,
he has no idea. I mean, and even in like meetings, like how much attention is like George paying attention in those? Like, hey guys, we don't want to tell the media this. Is he paying attention? Is he there? Is he on time? Whatever. But I mean, I think I don't really know what you have to gain here by saying that, like by keeping it a secret. I mean, I think that a lot of people would say that, like maybe to confuse the Jets and make them game plan for two quarterbacks. But I mean, the Jets had to watch the Steelers film this year, and Justin Fields has been a quarterback. There is no film on Russell Wilson. Like, I don't think that, I mean, it's not like Russell's a new quarterback either. I mean, like, this dude's been around. Like, everybody knows how Russell plays, like exactly what he does, what he doesn't like to do. This
played the Jets last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know what we're doing here. It just like I said at the opening part of the show, this just feels like we're just adding unnecessary chaos, but like I'm for it because I just think it's hilarious.
Had the Jets, well, I guess no longer OC, but Nathaniel Hackett as his coach in Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. They're not hiding anything that Russ is doing here.
Yeah.
Marie Kondo is the woman who loves mess. Her name and just came to me.
Okay.
Yeah. I look, George is like, I can't even be critical of George here. Like, first of all, the whole world knew Russell Wilson was starting.
Yeah, it was not a
this
secret.
This whole thing
really.
has been so bizarre. Like, the NFL Network report comes out timed with the start of Mike Tomlin's press conference, like he's going to announce that, and then he just decides, oh no, never mind, I'm going to keep this a secret. The whole team is basically openly acknowledged all week that, like, it sure seems very likely that Russell Wilson is going to start, if not anyone actually outright saying it. I mean, Russ came really close to saying it himself yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he said it was his first game, right? Like he kind of did say it.
Yeah, right. So, like, I mean, it's not George's fault. Like, don't play stupid games and win stupid prizes. I honestly, because I enjoy mess, my conspiracy theory here is that Mike Tomlin does not care about the Jets, and that he is just doing this to see which of his guys is the one that lets it slip. It's like a rat trap, right? It's like, who can I really trust and who can I not? Who's paying attention and who isn't? Like, that's what I think.
I would like to see the Vegas odds on the leaderboards for who is going to let that slip, because I personally think George would have been at the very top.
George is like minus 5,000, like the biggest favorite ever. But like, I talked to Minka Fitzpatrick about this before the Raiders game, when it was a little bit uncertain earlier in the week who they were gonna start. And he's like, it does not matter. He's like, maybe it makes a difference to a coach who has to like cut up different film or something like that. Like, some coach might lose like 2 hours of sleep over it, but as a player, it does not matter to me whatsoever. And if there's a player on the defense that would matter to, it would be Minka Fitzpatrick. And so I don't think the Steelers are losing anything by the world finding out that Russell Wilson is starting.
They 100% should have told George that Justin was, though. Just to see if he would have said.
Also would love if this is actually just a huge work and Justin is starting. That this has all just been a cleverly devised conspiracy to make everyone think Russ. If that's it, that'd be pretty good. That'd be real good.
As a massive wrestling fan, I really appreciate the fact that you threw the word work in there. And I would love this if that was the case.
That would be very good.
Or
if Mike Tomlin just decides the first snap is going to be out of the Wildcat, and then Jaylen Warren is actually the starting quarterback of record. Yeah.
I mean, if Cordell Patterson was healthy this week,
Cordell Patterson, I want to see him play quarterback. I told him I want to see him. He said he could. He said he did it in high school. I need to go back and find some huddle tape or something.
Speaking of Russ going to be the starter on Sunday night, we got a question kind of regarding that because Alan, I feel like we talked a ton about the connection that he and Calvin Austin had this spring and early in the summer before he got hurt. Obviously, Calvin hasn't necessarily been, popping off on the stat sheet every single week, but he's been open for the most part. And that's kind of what this question gets into. Our guy Chop, big supporter over here. I know he supports Derrick and his efforts as well and his individual stuff, says, question for the show. Do we think Austin is getting missed while open so much due to size, Justin not trusting his ability, with him considering his small catch radius? Does the catch radius limit Austin's upside, even though he has elite speed and from what I can see has improved as a route runner significantly?
I mean, I can go first on this. I've been pretty impressed by Calvin looks like a completely different player to me on film compared to last year. Last year, the routes didn't look anything like what I thought they looked like in Memphis. Just didn't look as sudden, didn't look comfortable at all, pushing off that foot. And then this year, I think he's added some nuance to his route running. He understands how to manipulate leverage, how to get DBs to open up, and he's creating separation. To his point, though, I think he does ask a good question about you would say hey, we have a 4-3 guy who's improving as a route runner. What's the up? This has got to mean he's got a lot of upside, which the problem with Calvin is it's really self-explanatory. He's 5'7", 170 pounds. So there's only certain things that you can do with him. And in terms of even downfield, there's been a couple times I've taken shots downfield to him this year. It hasn't been a ton, but I think back to the Denver game was one. I think that they got bailed out on a penalty for that. And then another time, last week, even if he's got a step or two, what you would consider stacking a defensive back, there's just not a big strike zone to hit. He doesn't have a long wingspan. He's 5'7". So he's not ever going to be able to be a guy that's going to be able to fight through contact. So unless he's 2 to 3, 4 yards open, which just doesn't happen a lot in the NFL, because defensive backs are so athletic, it's going to be difficult to get him the ball. But I do think I think that if we just look at this in terms of what this could mean moving forward and next year, I think Calvin is a really solid wide receiver 4 type that also provides you pretty good value as a punt returner. If you get that out of a day 3 pick, that's great in my opinion, return on value. And I know that'll probably maybe disappoint some people that are maybe expecting a little bit more from him, but I like what I've seen from Calvin. It's just those size limitations. He's a historical outlier in terms of measurables, and it's going to be difficult to overcome.
Sir, he is 5'7" and 3/4. Do not besmirch the good name of Calvin Austin III by saying he is 5'7". By the way, Cam Heyward in the locker room today just simply addressed him as Short King. That was just the way he
Calvin's
called him.
Calvin's a good
dude. Here's the thing. I think Russell Wilson will be a good thing for Calvin Austin. You mentioned that deep ball last week where he does have the DB stacked and it comes in a little hot and he can't handle it. To me, that is the Russell Wilson pass where Russ brings out that huge high arc moon ball, drops it right down, right, and Calvin runs away with it. When I saw Calvin and Russ in the spring, I thought they had a great connection, and I've not seen that same connection between Calvin and Justin Fields in 6 games so far. I think Russell Wilson playing can do a lot for Calvin Austin. I think he is one of the 2 guys on this offense that I think will be keys for this offense in this game. I mean, listen, George Pickens is going to have Sauce Gardner over there, and you're playing with fire every time you throw it. The Steelers, the Jets have 2 corners down, both Reed and Carter. Reed is questionable, but didn't practice all week. If he plays, he won't be 100%. Carter's already ruled out. if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm not even looking at George Pickens against Sauce Gardner if the other two matchups involve backups. And I think Calvin Austin and Russell Wilson can be good, and I think Pat Freiermuth can eat against this Jets defense too. They're pretty good, especially in the front seven. But I think with those two corners down, their coverage can be attacked. I think the Steelers have to get Austin and Freiermuth going. I think that's the area where, if you look at the change from Fields to Russ, that's one of the areas where I think they can see the biggest improvement.
I just think, like, too, I brought this up last week, I think, too, but I don't know. It's difficult because the things that Calvin's doing really well right now in the slot are things that I kind of imagine that they drafted Roman Wilson to do. So, like, it's kind of weird because I don't know how they're going to get Roman on the field unless you put Calvin outside, which is something that, like, I know that you say, like, okay, he's 5'7" and 3/4. So, like, is he going to be a guy that can go out there and win versus press? Well, like, they're not getting anything from Van Jefferson anyway. So, like, what's really
somebody asked us that last week. Somebody asked us that on here if there was a chance that Calvin could take Van's spot on the outside.
Yeah, I think
was able to increase his workload.
I think in 11 personnel, like, it does make some sense. Now, like, I would personally like to see them use more motion. I know that's like a really big critique of mine and Smith's offense anyways. Like, he doesn't use a lot of motion in the pass game, especially like at the snap. It's just a little too static for me personally. But you can use like both those guys in like fast motion and then like off stacks and bunches and things like that. And maybe use them a little bit more interchangeable. Like, I don't love either one of them against press, but I mean, like, for example, one of the plays that Calvin had that was really nice last week was on a play that Russ has like done really well in over the course of like his career. It's just Y cross, and like you put Calvin in the slot, he runs like this deep high crosser over the middle of the field, and he gets wide open. I mean, he just completely gaps the nickel off the snaps him off, mailboxes him over the middle. Justin eventually like rolls out after he gets pressured a little bit, finds him for a big 3rd and long conversion, which is great. But it's funny because like if you just look at the contour of the defense, the post safety is cheating towards George. And like when I say cheating, like I'm not talking about him lining up on the hash. He's on the numbers. Like they are literally like you just don't see this.
It's almost like a double X.
Yeah,
it's like not even really
bracket.
like
it's basically what it is. And then on the backside, they're pressing Van Jefferson, and he's running a dig route, and like he gets no separation, but like he gets up to the break point, and he just completely stops because the corner's like in his lap, and there's just nowhere for him to go. So he's like, I'm not going to get the ball here, so I'm just going to chill out. So it's like some of that stuff is like I don't know what the answer is beyond like, of course, like we think they should trade for a wide receiver, trade for somebody, whatever, but like maybe put Calvin out there just to see if like Roman can do some similar stuff in the slot. Maybe in the aggregate, you get positive results from that to take some pressure off George.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan kind of already started to talk about, what he thinks to be some key matchups, key players in this game in Calvin Austin and at Pat Freiermuth. And since we're on that side of the ball, Steelers offense versus the Jets defense, Derek, where does your mind go to first and foremost when you look at that matchup?
We talking Steelers offense versus Jets defense, right?
Correct.
Run the ball. I'm like
at Javon Kinlaw
away from Quinnen Williams.
If you guys have not, if you guys did not see the Bills Jets game on Monday night, I encourage you to go watch it.
Oh no, Alan watched every rep that Ray Davis had 5 times over.
Yeah, so man, he was chewing, man. So here's the deal. The Jets. So this is always a big tell for me. Like whenever I'm watching like teams. Whenever I start to see defensive lines like have to start spiking or slanting a particular direction, lets me know that their run defense sucks and their guys can't hold up at the point of attack. So they're just trying to muddy things up and like make it as like difficult as possible for the offensive linemen from a mental perspective. But their interior defensive line gashed off the ball, like 54. Javon Kinlaw. I don't know that I've seen a defensive tackle worse in run defense this year. It is shocking. He got moved. They were running a play that the Steelers run all the time, just mid-zone to the weak side. So you put 2 tight ends on one side, and then you just literally run a zone play to the left. He got moved like 6 yards off the ball, like right off the snap, off a double team. So it's like that stuff to me. The Bills also had a really high success rate in terms of duo runs. So they got a duo under center. They made Sauce Gardner tackle. Sauce Gardner has not was not good tackling in this game at all. So that's something to watch. And then also, like in the gun, they also did some stuff that I think the Steelers should adopt. I think that with Russ being in the shotgun, and him being a different athlete than Fields and not necessarily a design runner, they're going to have to change the way that they've been running the football in the gun. So you've got to probably introduce more like gap, more power stuff. Tackle wrap was a good play for the Steelers last year. We haven't really seen them run that this year. I think that that's something that the Bills had success with last week that they could lean into, just because like the zone read element and like just running like weak side inside zone with Russ, like it's not going to have the same effect that it does with Fields. So it's going to have to change. I'm interested to see what they do. Maybe they try to do more RPOs. Russ isn't really like comfortable with the RPO stuff really over the course of his career, but you got to try something. But I think you can run the ball on this team. They're 27th in rushing success rate. I think the linebackers have been put in a really difficult bind by some of the things that they're asking them to do.
Just looking at the way that, like, specifically for this game, if you're going to be in like shotgun or pistol with Russ and knowing that like you just need to run away from Quinnen Williams, I'd be running a bunch of like pin and pull kind of stuff where you're just like you're just overloading the other side of the defense and running away from him. I also think this is a better Jaylen Warren matchup than it is a Najee Harris matchup, because I think the Jets front seven is really good, and I think they have talent, and there are going to be times when like the Steelers offensive line, as banged up as it is just going to lose to guys like McDonald and Williams. And I don't know how many of their linebackers are healthy, but like Mosley's like a guy that can come knife a gap, and Quincy Williams is okay. But like, to me, this is the kind of like, this is a team you want to run outside against, I think. I want to make Sauce Gardner tackle, like Derrick said, and the strength is certainly up the middle. So I don't know. We'll see how healthy Warren is. He didn't look great last week, coming back from that knee sprain. I think he could have a bigger part of the offense for this one, but run and then play action. I think play action is a big part of what Russell Wilson can do. You have to run first for it to work. I mean, you don't, I guess, have to, but especially when you're coming off a game where you had 100 yards rushing, but it helps. And I think that's an area where Russ will be better than Fields. The other thing I think I would like to see more of that we saw installed a ton in this offseason and haven't really seen very much of is get the screen game going. I think I watched like 1,000 screens in Latrobe, and I don't think I've seen more than like 3 or 4 called. I think I would like to see a couple. I think that's a good way to get a banged up and somewhat uncertain offensive line going, to give them some free space kind of stuff.
Alan said everything that I wanted to say. To be honest, well, first and foremost, when talking about Russ, you said if, when referring to pistol and shotgun, you mean when, I assume. And speaking of Russell Wilson, as far as Jaylen Warren, that is the player that I wanted to highlight on the offensive side of the ball, and then wanted to tie in the screen game as well. To your point, I don't know that we haven't seen Jaylen Warren be Jaylen Warren yet, or at least the Jaylen Warren that we expect to see through 5 games. Through 6 games. Is he finally healthy? I don't know. I don't know how different he's looked at practice, but we'll see in this game.
It's hard to say.
This is the game that we were circling. We thought he was going to come back, so maybe this is the date here. Let's flip to the other side of the ball, talk about the Steelers defenses versus the New York Jets offense. Alan, you talked about this obviously a little bit in the morning rush, and we kind of talked about the Aaron Rodgers aspect of this Jets offense on yesterday's afternoon drive. Derrick, what do you think first and foremost when you think Jets offense versus Steelers defense?
It looks like the offense that Rodgers likes to run. I mean, it's the same stuff he was doing like 12 years ago with the Packers, fan. Like it's honestly shocking, like when you watch it, because like it's almost a culture shock. You go watch other NFL offenses and then you watch this one. It's like, are we playing the same sport? Like, are we sure? The Jets, they're 26th in motion. They don't use like a heavy rate of play action. Run some RPOs with Rodgers because of the quick release, but I mean, he's throwing pretty much like goes, back shoulders, slants, and flats. Like that's what he's doing. He's getting the ball out really quickly. I think he's got, the 3rd quickest time to throw this year. Like him and Garrett Wilson have like really had like a struggling kind of inconsistent connection. Like we know, like Rodgers, like there's no one in the NFL that has like his guys more than Rodgers does. Like you just have to always be on like his page. He likes to use a lot of signals, change things up at the line of scrimmage. Like he plays a very particular style of ball, and he wants you to almost read his mind more than any other quarterback. And he and Wilson just like haven't played enough together yet. Now it's interesting because they
Yeah,
just went
have
out
they
and
signed? Have they
traded for
brought
his
in
best friend.
Marcus Valdez-Scantling yet, or what's going on with him? Have they signed
No,
him?
they just got they got all Rodgers like buddies and stuff in the coach's room, and now that
My
they've got
God.
Alan Lazard, they just traded for Davante Adams. We're just bringing the whole band back together. I'm surprised, like they got Randall Cobb, like the 2.0 light version, and Malachi Corley. I'm shocked that he hasn't been able to convince them to make him active just for the bubble screen aspect of it. But yeah, I mean Rodgers is still doing the same stuff. Still got the quick release. The arm looks good. To me, he looks 40 when he gets outside the pocket, but like he's not like a complete statue. So that's been nice too. He's just not like the Rodgers of old in terms of like the way that he creates anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's this looks like the old school Aaron Rodgers offense to me.
I literally talked to a Steelers defensive player this week about the change in offensive coordinator, and the answer I got was like, it's Aaron Rodgers' offense. He was like, I don't expect it to be the same. Any different. 56% 11 personnel usage up to this week. I expect that to go up with the addition of Davante Adams. Their tight ends aren't any good anyway, and Tyler Conklin is questionable. I think they should be playing 11, if not 10, this week, especially if Mike Williams is healthy or going to play. I don't know. He seems healthy, just maybe not going to play. I am concerned about the Steelers' ability to cover that underneath stuff. I think, Joey Porter Jr. is obviously very good. Dante Jackson's been playing great. Minkah keeps a lid on it better than almost anybody. I'm worried about the underneath stuff. There's not a good matchup here for Beanie Bishop at all. I mean, at all. I don't know which of these guys is going to primarily be the slot receiver, but if it's Alan Lazard, he's 6'5". If it's Davante Adams, he's Davante Adams. Like, I don't think either of those works well. And I don't know what else there is. And then you insert like Breece Hall as the lone running back, but he's all the way over there outside the X receiver pieces of this offense. That's like, I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, I guess you can play some man and put Patrick Queen over there, but then I don't know how you're manning up these three wide receivers. They've got to get home fast, and they've got to find a way to try to hide their weaknesses better than I think they have on defense. I think they've been very predictable. And when you've got guys like Peyton Wilson and Beanie Bishop playing big roles in coverage, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to take advantage of them.
That's going to be the great equalizer, if so, for the Steelers defense, right? Is Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt going against Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, those old ass tackles. Is Morgan Moses even back this week, actually?
I believe so.
Okay, either way, how old are they together? Like, talking about the combined age of Rodgers and Wilson, combine the age of those two tackles that they got. What is it, like 76? Something like that?
Old enough.
I think that is, if the Steelers, to your point, you got to, and I think it's got to be with 4, right? You got to be able to get home with 4 in this one to be able to give yourself more coverage on the back end.
I mean, you can't just only rush 4 all game. You can't be that predictable.
Does Terrell Austin know that? Hold on. Does Terrell Austin know that?
I do think, like
the numbers say he doesn't.
I do think it is a little bit like, I understand their thought process there, but like they got to blitz a little more than they have. I think. I don't know. I'm not sure this is the quarterback I want to blitz a lot. Like, I agree with that. Like, I just I don't know. I think they've got to come up with some. I think they got to get into their bag a little bit and come up with some different answers. Maybe some quarters or some quarter half. We haven't seen a lot of that from them, but like that cover 6 quarter half, they've done that a lot before. I think that probably works in this game. They cannot just play spot drop cover 3. Aaron Rodgers will just annihilate them.
Let me ask you about that Beanie Bishop matchup that you talked about in the slot. DeMonte Casey, what's his status?
In.
Okay, so could we see like Minkah Fitzpatrick maybe line up in the slot with him at times, and then have KZ and Deshaun Elliott as the back safeties?
It's possible, yeah. We saw this against Cleveland last year, where they actually played Minkah outside of Joey, and they played him as because if you're playing cover 2, the outside corner has a flat zone, so he's not really leaving the line of scrimmage. So they kind of played him in that flat zone outside and then moved Joey inside. I think that was for Njoku mostly, but I could see them doing something like that when they move Breece Hall outside in the formation. But I don't think the Steelers have any good answers for covering 3 receivers like this. Not with Corey Trice hurt, anyway.
Yeah, right. I mean, I figured that would be a somewhat significant loss to them. I think a lot of people probably didn't know to what magnitude, but there's certain matchups where it's just really going to be highlighted like this. Like, can we have Cam Sutton come back now and then be suspended for a game in the back end?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, you don't want him suspended for the Bengals. So, you get
to pick the matchup.
Yeah.
I don't know, Washington.
I don't know which you don't want it to be the Eagles. You don't want it to be the
Cleveland.
Chiefs.
Yeah, probably Cleveland. Yeah.
Cleveland, I guess, does not have, especially now after trading Amari Cooper, does not have 3 receivers that scare you.
I will say this. I just combing through some stuff here on the Steelers defense. I could hijack this pod to complain or talk the scheme, the blitz rate stuff. I'm not going to do that on your all's podcast. I will say this though.
Thank you, because we're 31 minutes in already.
Yeah. I will say this, the Steelers are dead center in terms of quarterback pressure rates, or 16th in pressure rate, but they are luckily still third time to pressure, so 2.51 according to next gen stats. That's third in the NFL. Rodgers, like I said, has the third quickest time to throw, so you're going to need some quick wins, especially if you're not going to blitz a lot in this game. The one thing that I will say that is at least encouraging to me, and is something that could definitely swing this matchup heavily, is Alex Highsmith being back, because you've seen the amount of attention that TJ's drawn. I actually don't know if the Jets are going to chip TJ as much as they have, other teams have. I actually don't think they will, just based on the way that they played this season. I could be wrong on that, but I just know how Rodgers likes to
with anyway.
Well, Rodgers likes to get 5 out in the pattern too. He likes the quick passing game. He feels like he can probably navigate those matchups more than maybe most quarterbacks. The one thing that I will say is I went back and watched the 3 games, I think, of the Jets offense so far this week. Tyron Smith looks like he's about 75 years old. He looks stiff. And I know Tyron played pretty well last year. I know he's had some back issues, and he's always been a phenomenal athlete somehow, even though he's dealt with a ton of injuries over the course of his career, I feel like. But watching him this year, man, I almost I got one game, I almost got a full game through, and I went to look up their roster, and I'm like, is this really Tyron Smith, or is this a backup in here? Because this does not look like, he looks like he can't move. So
I'll hit him at once.
Yeah, I mean, he is old, so it just happens to the best of them. But I think Highsmith being back, if he's full go, I think that Highsmith could really have a big game if they do get into some advantageous, down and distance game script type of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. All right, before we get out of here, we got to do some predictions for this one, including, you know what I'm going to say. We got to get some bold predictions as well. I'll go first to give you guys some time if you haven't given it much thought yet. I've gone back and forth about the result of this one. I don't feel great about it. I think it's going to be a very competitive football game. I'm going 24-20 Jets, unfortunately, on Sunday Night Football. My bold prediction, we talked about his name a ton. Alex Highsmith gets a strip sack in this one.
It's pretty.
You go ahead, Alan.
I've been very, very back and forth about this. And I really still do not know what I actually want to do here. But I think I will go that the Steelers get a couple breaks in this game, and they're going to win 16-13, and I'll make my bold prediction in overtime on a Chris Boswell field.
Nice. Yeah,
Sunday Night Football going to overtime. Okay, we're getting way too close to last Sunday Night Football game now. If we're doing
and Allen leaves the stadium at 4 a.m. again.
Oh, brother. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, there.
Man, I'm trying to think about so you kind of took my thunder there with the strip sack for Alex Highsmith. So my bold prediction is just that Highsmith gets 2 sacks. Like I just think that he's going to have more than one sack. It could be like a sack and a half, whatever. But I just think that the matchup, if he's like full go and healthy, like, and I haven't been able to see him in practice, but if he is, like, I love the matchup for Highsmith this week. I will say my game prediction is, I'll say 2016 Jets. Nothing about the way that the Steelers have played on defense this year schematically, I think, is like some of the stuff that I've seen Rodgers struggle with this year. So like, I don't know if they have another way to play. And I think that Rodgers, like, getting the ball out quick could cause them issues. I just think that this style of quarterback is kind of tailor-made to the way the Steelers want to play defense right now. If Terrell Austin comes out and throws a curveball, I promise that I will be the very first one that is like hyping that all the way up on the timeline all week next week. But I don't know. We'll see.
I think they got something up their sleeve. I feel they've never lost in their throwback uniforms. Mike Tomlin, very good record at home in prime time. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is like, I don't know how to digest it, because it would be so weird for them to start 0-2 at home in primetime. Like, that was the other thing. It's like, I just don't like, they've been so good historically.
I think this is a game they should lose, but I think they're going to find a way to win it.
Yeah. Are you changing your mind, Smitty, on your prediction?
I'll be honest. The biggest thing was the uniform thing for me. I was like, you know what?
Here I was, like, not wanting to bring up like the Jets' desperation factor of the season. They're 2-4. They're completely all in on a 47-year-old quarterback, and they just traded for his best friend.
Desperation factor, because they're the Jets, and it was over before it started.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. They're always desperate. Like, they've kind of cornered themselves into desperation. But like, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy into this like too much, especially me. And now Smitty's getting persuaded by a uniform choice.
I could be persuaded by anything, to be honest with you. Tell me TJ's wearing a smoke visor.
Superstitious.
I'm probably gonna, yeah. All right. Anyway, no, I'll stick with it. I'll stick with my gut. Unfortunately, I hope Alan is the one that is correct, other than the overtime aspect of that. Hopefully, we can get that field goal in regulation to win the game. Other than that, DB, tell the people they can find you.
At Steelers_DB on Twitter and on YouTube. And you can follow all of my written work at SteelersNow.com.
SteelersNow.com, huh? Alan, how about you?
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now. SteelersNow.com. You can find me in the Steelers locker room, where I'm posting the videos of the players I talked to. And apparently, I should not do that, according to the people of Twitter that are mad that I tweeted the video of George Pickens.
Yeah, you gotta keep that. You gotta keep it in house.
11 members of the media. Got to keep that. Quiet.
You guys are part of the team.
I'll be honest. That was one of the more. I had to comment on that, because that was the more unhinged tweets I've ever seen. And like, I mean, we all do. We all get the most ridiculous stuff that pops up on our timelines and our mentions on a weekly basis. But that was just one of the more like eye-popping ones. Like, dude, how do you?
If they want you to keep things in house, tell them to start paying you.
I will gladly keep everything the Steelers want in house. If I start to get a paycheck, that's fine. I will sign up for that right away. Until then, I'm going to do my job for y'all, because that's
unbelievable. I was legitimately laughing as I was reading the exchange earlier. So
what are you talking about? SteelersNow.com. That's where I do journalism. It's my job. Go read the words so I can get paid. Use promo code Allen10 or Derrick10 if you like Derrick better. It's still 10% off an annual subscription. Works out to about $4 a month. Get all the best stuff from DB and myself, and an ad-free viewing experience, which I cannot tell you how good it is. Every time I like accidentally open like a private browser window or something, I'm like, stop.
Get it out.
I need the ad-free. I don't know how some of y'all do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts, your predictions, or a question for a future episode. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be Be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. The same place you can find us on TikTok, and then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders, Derrick Bell, and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.